We are going to start our study session. All righty, thank you. Okay. Counselor Rudd.
I guess it's ready.
All righty, thank you. And I should have by Monday, I'll know by Monday. Thank you. All righty, Counselor Bay, I'll let you have that one.
Thank you. I have item number 10. And if there are any no questions or concerns from my colleagues,
Yeah, I'd just like to know, like, can you walk me through what it is that we're trying to do?
can I walk you through?
Yeah, I guess.
There were committee meetings for that, actually, so no, I'm not going to walk you through. But if you want to talk offline, we can.
Okay.
All right? If anybody else want to walk him through, they can walk him through.
Well, I will.
All right.
Well, basically, Counselor Carney, we have not redistricted in almost 20 years, and the districts have truly changed.
Okay.
And so with the census, we have an opportunity now to change and redistrict to make it, bring it more.
No, I guess my
Specific about
question,
independent redistricting.
yeah, no, I guess that's my question. Is it going to be amongst the council and a
No,
conversation?
it's
an we're
independent
gonna bring it in.
commission.
How are we going to go about that process?
Well, I'll be looking out for you and other colleagues because we're going to have a diverse independent commission of folks.
Okay.
We're going to need you, your Repubs. We're going to need Dems, and we're looking at independents, and they'll do the redistricting.
And this is for the, like, changing as of this year or as of 2020 with the
2021.
census? Okay. Yep. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 11 through 18. Several of these are grant applications. Janet here?
Good morning, Janet Burke from the Bureau of Research. Our first grant is for our GIVE grant for DCJS, which is an ongoing program that we have with Onondaga County. And our portion is to pay for overtime for hotspot policing, focus deterrence, and street outreach, including a truce case manager and project coordinator. And the second one is, I'm sorry, sure.
On 11. So who is the truce case manager at this point?
You know what, I have to be honest with you, Counselor, I'm not sure.
Because I think she's gone.
I know that the one that had one previously is now at the Gifford Foundation.
Right.
So I don't know if they've replaced her yet.
And who would be able, because, I mean, I know about truce, I've been a part of all
Sure.
the different things.
Of course.
But I need to find out some.
That would be Rich Trudell.
Okay.
Captain Rich
because I
Trudell.
wanna know what the outreach is.
Okay, do you want me to get some more information for you?
Yeah, I
Okay.
would like more information.
Sure, I'll get that to you by Monday.
Thank you.
Okay?
And can you clarify, so you said, oh, so there's no local match required?
There is no match, no.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and the second one is, the chief of police has decided that he would like to have more police officers than we originally thought be outfitted with body-worn cameras. So there was another application available for an additional 50 body-worn cameras. So we're going to apply for those.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The next one's a contract for this last year for work done by Interfaith Works. Any questions?
Yeah, I would just be curious to hear a little bit about the program, if we could.
In the progress.
Yeah, just,
Is there anybody here from Interfaith?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes. Where is he? Peter?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, good afternoon.
Pete, can you state your name and that for the camera? Yeah.
So my name is Peter Wilner. I'm from Interfaith Works. Peter Wilner from Interfaith Works.
thank you.
And the question was?
Yeah, so I was just curious, I mean, I know this is, I'm very in support of the program but, you know, it's obviously, there's a lot of intangible gains that we get from it, you know, a lot of that community fabric that we need, that we like to see built. But I'm just wondering if you had any metrics of, how the program's going, what's
Yep.
gone on, how the interactions have been going,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yeah. So far to date, we've had 9 dialogue circles for an estimated 101 participants. We have 4 circles that are currently in process right now because of the transition of the police chief. And also because of the after effects of staffing from the summer crime emergency, we only held 1 dialogue circle in the fall, so the majority of our work has happened between January to now. And so I think some of the things that we're seeing, again, this is preliminary analysis, we're seeing really positive increases, nearly 20% increase in the perception that community members are respectful in their interactions with police, a 32% increase in the perception that police understand community member concerns. That's for the adult circles, and on the youth side.
Sorry, can I stop you just for a
Yeah,
second? So when
yeah.
you say 20% more, so that's from the officers gauging the opinions of the public?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yep.
good.
And then on the youth side, we're seeing a 78% increase in perception that youth understand the job of a police officer better, and a 32% increase in the perception that police understand youth concerns. So those are just preliminary findings to date.
You also have provided your annual report online, correct?
We have last year's, and then our annual report for this project is going to be due on June 28th of this year.
And then that will be sent to all the counselors.
Sent out to all the counselors, and we'll do a report to the community as well.
This is obviously tough work, but I just want to make a request.
Yep.
Because sometimes, with all due respect, the report that we hear in here doesn't match the report we hear elsewhere. And I'm just talking about the effort to build relation. We know that the effort or to facilitate it exists, but from what I understand from both sides of the issue, sometimes the dialogue doesn't really produce any real cohesion or understanding. So I'm just requesting that, because I'm sure the effort is there, but that at least the report reflects what's in fact happening, and this is no disrespect to anyone else, but what's in fact happening, so we can really gauge where we are in regards to progress. All right?
Of course.
Appreciate
Yep.
it.
Okay.
And Peter, what is the breakdown of community to police officer? What's the breakdown?
Typically, and I don't know totally this year, but typically it can be anywhere from 2 to 3 community members to 1 officer in the circles, typically.
2 to 3, and the rest are made up of what, not-for-profits?
They're really recruited from all over. I should say we have youth dialogues, so those would be students in
Is
school.
that counted in the 2 to 3?
Yeah. That ratio is quite a bit different, actually. They're normally about 10 to 14 youth with about 3 to 4 officers. So it's a little bit of a
So
higher.
you're having a bigger impact with the youth
Yeah,
with this.
yeah. But we recruit from faith-based institutions, nonprofits. We do a lot of outreach just to recruit as broad a swath as we can from the community.
Okay, I can't wait to see the report.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Renette, number 14.
Raynette Relaford, Administrator for the Citizens Review Board. We have item 14, which relates to us doing some outreach into the community with some bus signs. On the Central buses, we will be having 6 shelters with signs throughout the city, and also 35 bus cards for the interior. You should have pictures of the cards in your bulletin related to it. We spread them out throughout the city. We will have one that will be located on Fellows. We'll have one that's going to be located near St. Joe's Hospital on Union Ave and Prospect Ave. One on the south side, located on Salina Street in West Brighton. East side, located on Waverly and Walnut Place. One on the west side, South Salina Street and New Street. and another one on the west side on West Genesee and Lakeview, to try to hit all quadrants around the city. And the bus cards will be up in various buses.
So it's only for a month?
It's for, what happens is, the term is only for a month, but it stays on until somebody else buys that spot. So usually it typically runs a lot longer than a month, but it can only be allocated for that particular portion, and so this is the amount until somebody buys that space. When they buy that space, then it comes down, but if not, we last did this in 2015, and some signs still remained on the bus and others were not, and this is to secure more signs on the bus. And we've never done shelters before, so this is our first time doing shelters throughout the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this the first time you said?
This is our first time doing shelters throughout the city. We have done bus signs
Bus signs,
previously, the little interior signs. We have done those before, but
Okay.
this is the first time trying to hit shelters.
And how are you going to measure that?
How are we going to measure? So every time that we file, a complaint is filed, we measure which common council district it comes from, and we intend to then ask the person if they saw our shelter in that area and see if that's making any difference.
Thank you. Items 15 and 16 are resolutions, one for police, one for fire, to bring the one officer and 3 firefighters into the 20-year retirement system.
Do we have anyone here to talk about those?
The requests were made by the presidents of each of the unions to the assembly, Woman Hunter. So we have people to speak. What would you like, question-wise? And then I know how we could direct it.
My questions would be, how much of the cost that is the past service cost that would be, the city would be responsible for? How much of that would, that the city would have paid had the, Corey?
Thank you.
Corey Dunham, Chief Operating Officer. I mean, so we can get some of the figures in terms of what it would have been, but the city is responsible for the entire cost. And for what it's worth, the administration is not supportive of either of these resolutions.
Can I ask some questions?
Sure.
And feel free to.
And yeah, if it starts going above if I get a little out of my depth here, Donna Briscoe and Margaret Scheika are both here from Personnel and Labor Relations.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, would this, for example, in item 15, how much of that $384,000 that the city would pick up under this resolution or under this proposal, would the city have paid if the person had been put in the correct slot to start with?
Right. I mean, I believe that's what we would have been paying over this period of time. Okay. Since we didn't, now we're paying it back, and if the resolution passed, we'd be paying it back with interest.
Okay. So there's no additional penalty that the city takes on because the applicant, because the process wasn't completed correctly in the first place?
I mean, the interest.
The interest.
The interest,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that the primary pushback, is the interest?
I think
Does the administration agree with the principal amount, or?
I mean, there are, and it's certainly not intended as anything personal. There are some facts in dispute, but we believe the facts that we can establish favor New York State. Letters were sent to these applicants letting them know that there was an issue with their applications. We've been unable to locate any indication that there was a reply to those letters. So, and particularly with Officer Nicolini, we have a few other options that we could offer him to try and, it might not be this exactly, but we do have other options that we could work with him on, but we just think it's an exceedingly high cost.
Any other questions relative to that?
I guess, and if there are other options, have we approached,
Can I just cut in quickly? This is personnel, so would this be executive session? No?
No, I don't think so, because it's on the agenda. Yeah, it's in the Senate, and it's in a bill, so.
So there's some, we would certainly be open to having a conversation with Officer Nicolini. So far, the conversations have been through the PBA, to my understanding, and so there's some concern about us reaching out to him directly, but we would welcome a conversation with him.
I'm not a lawyer, but the way I understand it
Or am I?
is that everybody signs up for their pension, and then somehow a notary didn't sign this one, and then because of it, he wasn't enrolled. Because of it, the city didn't make contributions. Then the city was told about it at some point. In my opinion, I would use the words long ago, when it would have been less money, and we didn't fix it. So it's gotten bigger, and it's going to sit there.
Right.
And it's an actual human being, like one of our first responders, right? And
Absolutely.
like, I don't understand. Like, it should have been fixed when we first learned about it, when it was less expensive. I think it's the same mistake to not do anything about it now. Is there like a legal ground to argue that maybe we don't need to pay? Maybe there is, but to me, it just seems like this is like a technicality. Like, I cannot imagine. There are people who are like, oh yeah, well, the letter clearly, if I got this letter, I would run the personnel. Well, I don't know. If I got the letter, I might think it's one of the 4 other communications I get about like retirement things that they notify you of all the time. And I don't know that I would have run to my leader Piedmont to go after somebody's head right away. Like, I can see how it would go on for a while. I think we should fix it. I mean, I don't mean to be like flip by saying like put it in the oops column of the budget, but like we get sued for things that are unexpected and we bond for it and we fix it. Like, this to me, essentially we've been borrowing from this person's pension to pay for city services. Like, that's the only way I can see it. Like, it should have been taken care of.
Just so you know, this goes right to the retirement fund. It would just be a new payment we would make. It's not borrowing money.
I know, but it's
And you
this
have a 10-year
person's
payment back.
retirement, right? I mean, it is a person on the other side of this.
It is, and just from the materials that we have reviewed, the employees were notified that there was an issue, and we can't find any evidence that any additional action. I don't know if you heard that. We know these are people. From the evidence that we've been able to locate, materials we've been able to locate, that the employees were advised that there was an issue with their application. We have no evidence that any action was taken to correct those problems. And so I don't, so the responsibility would, in our opinion, fall on the employee.
I would just state that we don't know that the employees received the letter from the state. That's the only.
Right. I mean, it's addressed to them, it's dated.
Right.
Whether or not they opened their mail, I can't attest to.
There's a legal presumption that mail that was delivered was received. That's the truth, but.
I'm gonna go back because we've had this come up before us probably 6 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And again, it was past administration, should have been cleared up. And I mean, I have a problem too because it's $700,000, okay? And we talked about that. But I also, as I stated earlier, you're talking about folks that should be able to retire in 20 years, which is going to kick them out another 20. That's a lot.
So, I mean, we do have, in terms of the council reviewing this before, we were able to locate that in 2015 in April. A resolution was on the agenda for their then councilor, Pam Hunter, but according to our records, it was withdrawn, and we're not really sure why the item was withdrawn. So I don't believe it's passed the council before. And I certainly understand that these are individuals, real lives, real retirements, and we'd be happy to try and sit down and figure out if there are any other options, but these resolutions were, given the exceedingly high cost, we were just not supportive in their current state.
Could I? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just curious, you mentioned that there were, you were considering possible other alternatives, other ways to deal with this. Can we discuss that, or would that be an executive
I think that's something that would be discussed with the personnel. It has nothing to do with the agenda items in front of you.
How's it not?
The city is looking to offer the officer another position to. Yeah.
That's the alternative?
Okay.
Yes. An alternative position for a time period where, so it's not, it's got nothing to do with this.
In your opinion, that would be outside of the resolution, so that would be.
It is definitely outside the resolution. It's a resolve to the resolution relative to Officer Nicolini. If he were to accept it, But this is the proposal as is.
Okay.
So, okay.
I have one more question, and it's not for you. Paul Matondo? Yes, sir. Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Because it's okay, I'll be a sir today. Out of the whole class of firefighters, I'm trying to figure out how did these three miss that?
Great question. The history of this is profound and it's long-term. Much homework, legwork, paperwork, paper trail. As everybody knows, dealing with the state and attempting to get documents are very difficult. Attempting to get fiscals are very difficult. But through our research, and the members' research, I should say, speaking on behalf of the three firefighters that were in the wrong tier, they came out of classes of anywhere from 20 to 28 firefighters. How that process was, as Councilman Rudd explained, in the notary situation, this is where this came to fruition. Through the past probably 4 or 5 years, with myself and my principal officers and members of my executive board attending certain conferences and functions throughout the state, it got in our ear that we better get back to our members, and there's a lot of issues with the retirement system. And I'm just trying to give you a little bit of history on this. We approached all our members, every member within Local 280, and says we need to check what tier you're in. I know Corey wants to explain that, boom, those documents were sent and things, but let me tell you something. We all get a paper from the New York State retirement system, and it all looks the same. Nobody's looking at the specific tier. These are young firefighters at the time, and they're just glad to be here. Every one of their classmates was put in the correct tier. And if you read these documents that we forwarded on to Mr. Thompson, it was very clear that everybody else within that class, however the notary was done, a notary is done, as we know, in a legal manner. It's done in presence of the notary. This wasn't being done, and this was in the city's hand. So we showed documents to where the individual signed the paperwork expressing his desire to be in 384D or the 20-year retirement. And it went on, the paperwork went on. He did his part. All the notaries were done outside of that class. That becomes an issue. And if the three members from these three particular classes didn't get done for whatever the reason, but it wasn't on them. There was not a notary in public in front of them to make that signature, to make that, dot that I, cross that T. That was done outside of that class, and that was wrong. And we can show the document with that. So, in turn, we found they were in the wrong tier. They came to us, they checked. Again, now I'm getting right up to the paper trail issue. We reached out to the state. We went to the comptroller's office. We met in Albany, trying to get the facts and make sure we were right. And we got the actual applications, and that's where we got all this information from. It takes time. And again, on the next front, we approached Assemblywoman Hunter, who previously was working with Mr. Nicolini in the past, and some other members. She was gracious enough to sit down with us, and we went over the situation, and she agreed with us that there's an issue here. So she did her end from the state. She prepared the legislation for the fiscal, and in turn, of course, we're explaining the process with the home rule, and that's why we're here today. But ultimately, it is, without question, if you look at the documents, you look at the paperwork involved, I know somebody says that one wasn't notarized, it was sent back there, as Corey stated, that there might have been some paperwork sent. These are firefighters in their 20s that have just got the job of their life. And whether they got it or not, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that it wasn't notarized properly, and the documents got shuffled. However, they're in the wrong tier, and we're expressing that it needs to be done correctly.
I hope that moving forward, though, that we're going to ensure that everybody is in the right tier that they belong in.
Since this has come out, and I explained about the gathering all the information from around the state and things, the state now has legislation in place. You're automatically put in the proper tier. There's no longer, this is not going to happen again. It can't happen again. The state's put legislation in place that's not going to allow that to happen, and we're good going forward. And we got 3 members that serve the city proudly, and we hope you come through for them.
Was the state legislation inspired by this incident or others similar to it? Was this a problem
This one and others. Around the state, there's numerous. And that was the issue that was happening. But with us, it was very clear.
Thank you. Thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, just for Corey real quick. So I just want to make sure that, and again, I know this happened a while ago.
Yes.
Just currently, when we notarize things, the notary's there and witnesses it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure that we don't have any.
For the record, I am a notary public, and so I've taken the test and I know all the rules, so yes.
All right. Just want to make sure the city isn't having anybody committing felonies.
Well, I don't know that we've clearly identified,
Get 'em thrown off the
I don't know
ballot
that
for
it's
that.
documented who, that it was someone from personnel that did the notary or something else. I don't know that we have any clear documentation of, that it was on personnel to notarize these.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any, 17 and 18 are fire department requests. And
Where you at? Where are you?
17 and 18.
Okay,
There are no questions. Those are mine, and mine are ready.
thank you. Counselor Bay.
Thank you. I have item number 19. Owen?
Good afternoon, Councilors. Owen Kearney with City Planning Division. This item is in regards to a project we're working on in Meacham Park along Onondaga Creek. We're working with Saratoga Associates on design documents for a project down there to essentially engage the creek. We've have our preliminary design documents done. We've held a couple of public meetings, and we're in the permitting process right now with New York State and the Army Corps of Engineers. That can be a lengthy process. We want to keep Saratoga on board, and we're looking to extend their contract through the end of the year so that they may stay on and assist with that process. The budget, no increase in the budget or any other scope of work items. It's just essentially extending that contract with them.
Any questions? No, thank you.
Yeah, I would actually like to ask a few. So sorry, where, the Onondaga Creek and Seneca Term, where exactly,
So if
what
you-
exactly is the local waterfront revitalization program? Where are we looking at exactly?
So that's a New York State program, and quite a popular program here in New York State to have funding for communities to engage their waterfront. Years ago, the city had designated Onondaga Creek a waterfront. It hadn't been. I think a lot of these projects typically occurred in the Finger Lakes and down Long Island around the Sound. Anyway, the creek was designated, and we've done projects along the creek. This is actually our second one. We have a similar one in Kirk Park. But basically looking, if you're familiar with that intersection of the creek and Seneca Turnpike, it's the southeastern corner right in Meacham. There's some public art that's currently there. Won't disturb that public art, but it's basically in an area where we have a very active recreational park and looking to put in something that allows people to rest, relax, and view the creek, engage the creek, visually anyway. And the project design, preliminary design has been well received by the public. And again, we're kind of knee-deep in the permitting process with the DEC and the Army Corps right now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rudd.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 20 through 26. 20 is the change in water rates that reflects the changes we made in the budget earlier this month. I'm ready to call it ready. Does anybody have any questions otherwise? Oh, okay, I'll call it ready. Thanks. 21. Is there anybody from IT? I don't see Dave Proack, but anybody who wants to talk about the Naughton Associates computer networking stuff? Okay, we'll hold it until Monday. Hopefully somebody will be here. Dave Clifford. Then we have these adjustments for tax stuff that we'll talk about in executive session probably on Monday. We're going to do executive session Monday. Yes. So 22, 23, 24. And 25, we'll discuss in executive session. 26 is Dave Delvecchio. You want to just describe, this is like a technical.
Dave Delvecchio, Commissioner of Finance. Now, this is the annual request. It's consistent with the tax rates the Common Council approved. Before we can collect money, you need to approve the levy. And this authorizes the Department of Finance to collect the taxes for the city and the school district.
Okay.
So it's just more of a
I'll call that one ready.
formal request.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Counselor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 27, Neil.
We get half of what the district gets.
Oh.
Neil Burke with the Department of Public Works. So, without any more holding of this item, it's finally ready. We have the updated scope of work from Gotcha Bike, which adjusts the launch dates and some of the specifics around the number of bikes and the number of hubs. So where this puts us is that we're looking at a launch date at the end of next month with a public event shortly thereafter. However, the specifics of this item are really just, again, the numbers, 200 bikes, 34 hubs, and the nuts and bolts of the agreement.
34, not 35?
We are at 34 because we are waiting on a signed lease agreement that would be on private property. SU owns a parcel, and they're slow to react, but it's in the works.
Could you provide me with the appendix information so I can attach it to the council on Monday? Didn't that change?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Didn't you have some appendix to your letter that changed as a result? Yeah.
Sure. Do you want a physical copy?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Item 28 will be a public hearing on June 17th. Item 29.
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robison, city engineer. Item 29 is easement to National Grid and Verizon for the Blodgett School. We're putting in a new electric service, so they have to run a new underground conduit and a transformer pad and put in a new transformer.
I'm gonna ask the question. Most of the easements are temporary. This is permanent. Why a permanent easement?
Yes, it would be a permanent easement as long as the facility is in existence. If for some reason we decide to,
Because I haven't seen too many permanent come through.
we did one for Bellevue a month or so ago, April.
And is that because the city needs to be able to maintain access to it in order to service it?
No, they put the transformer on school property, which is really city property, so they want an easement for their access to the transformer. They own the transformer. Is that right, Kelly? Yeah, they own the transformer.
Just as a procedural measure, I was asked by the city engineer to lay this on your desk along with the other local law for the charter change. So this local law would normally be tabled. It doesn't have to be tabled. It's eligible for a vote on Monday, as well as the item under Councilor Bay and President Hudson.
Yes, we're trying to get construction or the service installed while school's out of session. That's why the request to vote on it at Monday's meeting.
30 and 31.
30 and 31 is the New York State Empire State Trail project. Item 30 is an agreement with New York State, basically giving them access to the construction, or to do the construction on city right-of-way, and upon completion, the city is responsible to maintain and repair the Empire State Trail within our right-of-way for a period of 10 years.
So did you send us the plans for this?
No, I did not.
So I think we need those.
Huh?
We need those to.
You need
can
the
send them to-
plans?
Yep.
Okay. I can get you a set of the plans. And item 31 is approving the plans. Project on that is supposed to start, I think, within a month and be completed this construction season.
The whole Empire Trail?
The section within the city, at least.
And do you know anecdotally, I mean, I know we're going to get the plans, but anecdotally where the trail crosses city property, roughly?
Yes. Be on Hiawatha Boulevard from Pulaski Street to Van Rensselaer. On Van Rensselaer from Hiawatha to North Geddes. East Water from Franklin to Beach. Beach from Water to Erie Boulevard. And then Erie Boulevard from Beach out to the city line.
Yeah,
But our maintenance only goes up to Teal Ave on Erie Boulevard.
Thank you.
On the plans, are there public, like, is there a website or something? Because I just, like, Googled this the other day, and I was looking, and all it really shows is the whole canal system, and it shows the red part missing, and it's like, oh, we're going to fix that, but I don't really understand what it's going to look like at all, which I guess that's in the plans, but, like, where can we see?
I'll furnish you a copy of the plans. Is it
Okay.
going here? Where did that one go?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's basically striping within the city right-of-way, a bike trail.
There's no physical barrier, it's just striping?
Where?
Yes. And then within Erie Boulevard, it's going to be within the median that runs down the middle of Erie Boulevard with crossings at the intersection so that pedestrians or bikers can get to where they're going at the intersections.
And when do we imagine that work will be done? Do we know?
End of the construction season, she said.
I believe the plan is to get it done the section within the city this season.
Wow, great.
We wanted to know any details on the Empire State Trail.
Yeah, I mean, the general plans, again, Owen Kearney with city planning. There's essentially two sections. One is the downtown section that will begin at the intersection of Franklin and Water Street, right where the creek walk is outside of Cafe Kubal, and go all the way across Water Street from Franklin through downtown, through the Near East Side to Beach Street, right where the credit union is. Those improvements will largely be on road, so minimal kind of heavy construction there. They're making some curb and sidewalk improvements, corner improvements, but it's largely paint and signage designating the trail through that area. Obviously, on the western point, it continues up the creek walk and around the loop, the lake, and all that. As you go east at Beach Street, it heads north one block and meets Erie Boulevard at Beach, right by the water shop, and then progresses across Erie Boulevard all the way to Thompson Road, and picks up at that point, goes into the town of
So
DeWitt.
I think what I'd suggest is when you guys send us the plans, we can pick this up on Monday when we have them in front of us and we can
Right.
talk
And-
about it more.
And I know that counselors sit on some of the RFPs, which I do understand, but once you do have the plans together, I think it'll be a lot easier for you.
Sure.
If you make sure that we all get them before it goes on the agenda,
Sure.
and then we won't be beating it down at this table.
Sure, yeah, and we could do that, and maybe just a map of that trail route. I mean, the plans are probably 400 or 500 pages, they're pretty significant, so maybe pulling out those that really show the layout, the location.
Right.
The other thing we should note is this is a New York State project, so it's not going to be a city contractor, it's not a city project. Our ability to control some of that is limited. Now, we're obviously working very closely with the state, but it is a state project that will largely occur on state, and in some cases, city property. But I think that's part of the reason why we're working with the state as far as the rollout and everything else on this.
Could I just ask one more question, Counselor? So one thing I've heard from constituents a lot, especially those who enjoy the bike trails a lot, is that New York State, as a policy, just paints lines and doesn't provide any other markation for people on bikes, and they say that feels insufficient to those on bikes. And I understand that this is a state project and they take the lead on it, but would there be any way we as a city could provide, I'm not saying like build a curb there, but something as simple as small conage, like plastic marcation, is that something that we can have a discussion with the state about, that we as the city provide, or is it basically the state makes the rules and we just have to abide?
The state has taken a lot of input from the city. The on-road part, where I think the most likely spot for some sort of cone or demarcation, then gets into the maintenance issue with the plowing and things like that. Water Street's a downtown street that needs to be plowed, and having something that would separate that lane, it would be difficult to plow it. Obviously, on Erie Boulevard East, you're in the median. That's something that is separated from traffic.
Yeah, the median sounds great.
That'll
yeah.
really be designated. It'll be a new trail, high visibility. But the downtown portion is a lighter touch, and that's something we had limited options on that. And so I think the signage and the paint will go a long way. They've improved over the last few years as far as what they do, but it won't be that sort of designated trail like you see on Erie.
Are they going to pave where they paint? Because last time I went down Water Street, you needed a mountain bike to not pop your tire.
They are improving parts of it. It's not a full reconstruction of Water Street, though. That's a city facility.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we're planning a meeting on Monday at noon in the study session, or what?
My plan is when we'll get the plans, and then we can look at them during study session if we have follow-up questions then.
Okay, perhaps follow-up questions on Monday at noon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the interim, obviously, if there's
I'd
general
like to-
questions you have, we're happy to answer
We could have a
them.
conversation about that further. I'd like to discuss. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. 32, 33.
32 is our allocation for minor bridge money, $200,000. This is to supplement some funding for our Bridge New York projects and also any emergency or minor bridge repair on our bridges in the city.
Okay.
Item 25 is $25,000 allocated for minor bridge, city pedestrian bridge repairs.
Okay. Item 34.
34 is $100,000. This is a new project for stormwater management program plan requirements and stormwater improvements. This is really things that we need to do in order to meet our DEC requirements and EPA requirements for handling stormwater.
Questions?
Yeah. What does it entail?
Well, we were audited by the EPA last June, so there's things that have to be done to our facilities, a lot of inspection of stormwater outfalls, mapping of our stormwater outfalls and sewer sheds. There's really a lot to it.
So most of this 100K will be for analysis of.
It'll be for inspections. It could be for some materials for our catch basins, maintaining our catch basins, and mapping. It's a variety of different things.
Okay.
Okay. 35.
35, we need to replace a vehicle, which is a 2008 Dodge Durango that our mapping and surveying division uses for surveying, and that's not to exceed $32,000.
So this might not be a question for you, but where do we stand on the fleet manager position?
That is not a question for me.
So we're currently looking, I took a look at the existing fleet manager position, and I think it doesn't quite get us what we're looking for, so I'm going to be working with personnel to revise the job description, and hopefully we can have it posted within the next few weeks so that we can be ready to roll as close to July 1st as possible.
So is this, is it wise to purchase new vehicles before we have that figured out?
I don't think, you know, if we were doing an entire fleet purchase, then I would maybe perhaps ask for us to wait, but I don't think this individual purchase, just one vehicle, if engineering needs it, I don't see any reason to hold that up.
Okay, thanks. 36.
36 through 38 is a new Bridge New York project. It's East Brighton Ave Bridge over the New York Susquehanna and Western Railroad tracks. We're replacing the superstructure. We're asking you for a bond ordinance, an agreement, and project authorization for the design phase in the amount of $657,788. Total project cost is a little over $3.6 million, and it's 95% reimbursed by Bridge New York funds.
So sorry, wait, the 650K will be 95% reimbursed?
Yes, as well as the full project.
Is that the full project? Wow, great.
Item 39 through 41 is our second Bridge New York project that was awarded. This is West Colvin Street over Onondaga Creek. Again, we're asking for the bond ordinance, the agreement with New York State, and the project authorization for the design phase, which is $163,000, and the total project is $895,481. Also 95% reimbursable for the whole project. And 42 through 44 is our TIP project for University Ave. Improvements between Waverly Ave and East Genesee Street. This is to amend our existing bond, New York State DOT agreement, and project authorization to add the construction and construction inspection phase by $475,000. The total project is $593,000. This is the project, the Connective Corridor project that was done a few years back. There's some elements that need to be improved that were originally installed, so it's going to have some miscellaneous improvements. Not very many, it's only $500,000 project.
You know,
And this is 80% reimbursable.
sorry
No
not to get
Marcia
into it,
Sally.
but do you know what some of those are? I'm curious if it includes, like, at some points, I don't know if this is the same thing, but at some points the curbs go out. Do you have any idea what I'm
We're
talking
not
about?
changing any configuration of the
Nothing
curb line.
configuration of it?
There's some porous pavers that have settled. We're looking at those. Just some vegetation improvements, just some things that haven't held up the way we thought they would, being
More aesthetic things like
more
that.
either replaced or repaired.
No major.
So Mary, there's no warranty on the porous, because we've gone through that before when we had to replace some of that.
Well, this is more of a, that they didn't, it's not like somebody disturbed them and they need to be repaired. It's more of a they've settled more than we would like, and they were installed in driveways, and looking at how the driveways are not in as good condition as they should be, we're going to replace them in the
How often
driveways.
are we looking at replacing it, since we're responsible for the maintenance at this point?
Are we, I'm sorry?
How often are we gonna have to replace these, do you think?
Hopefully this would be it.
And no
Until the
Marcia's-
lifespan of, the project, and, it has to be done under normal circumstances.
And no Marcia Shelley?
There's no Marchicelli.
Okay.
Any
Okay.
questions? Thank you.
Item 45.
These are standard.
Good afternoon, Beth Smith from the Water Department. Item 45 is a renewal of intermunicipal agreement with Onondaga County to allow us to purchase fuel at the Onondaga County fueling facilities in Marcellus.
Does it just work like a tab, like we spend whatever it is, or is it automatically going to be 6,000?
Whatever we need. Right.
So no more than 6,000 per year.
Right.
Capped.
Okay.
Item 46 is also a renewal of an agreement with South Branch. That's located on the edge of the city near Nedrow, Dorwin, Ida, that area. We sell water to Aqua so they can distribute that to the Nedrow area. Item 47, again, is a renewal of an agreement with Onondaga County Water and Soil District. It's a 26-year renewal, and they work with the farmers with best management practices to keep the water clean and to dispose of manure and farm-related issues. And let's see. Item 48 also has to do with the Empire State Trail project. New York State is going to adjust the elevation of some fire hydrants and adjust some valves from Beach Street to the town of DeWitt, Bridge Street, and that's given them permission to do that work. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you. Item 49 is a resolution to New York State. So the gist of this is that I'm asking New York State to allow municipalities to be able to make their own decisions in terms of where municipal deposits would go. So currently, municipalities are restricted from making deposits in credit unions. So this wouldn't dictate that a place like Syracuse would need to use a credit union, but it would give us the option if we found an institution that was a viable partner. The basic logic of this being that credit unions they are member-owned, and they tend to be locally focused, so there's a higher likelihood that the money that is deposited from municipalities would be reinvested in the community. And it would also provide competition for financial institutions, so as a result, potentially, the city could get a higher rate of return. Any questions on this?
Is Dave still here?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would just be, if that's all right with you, Counselor, I'd just be curious to hear your take on this, Dave, and your feelings on it.
I have no objection to the legislation, but we should be aware of, Councilor Green and I have discussed this. The city's investment policy in general municipal law has a requirement, it's called collateralization of deposits. Doesn't apply to individuals, such as us, an individual, but as a government. Governments in New York State are required to collateralize. So even if the money is placed with a credit union, is my opinion, the credit union would be required to comply with the city's investment policy. And that requires a collateralization of 102%. So if I could use an example, if we put $100 at the end of business today in M&T, they're required to collateralize that deposit of $100 at $102. Now, there's a variety of ways they can do that. They can get $102 with another bank. There's surety bonds, and I can share with you a copy of our investment policy. It's approved once a year, and I do send it to the Common Council. So that's my issue. It's not an issue. I think that'll be a concern. So even if the legislation were to pass at the state level,
that would be the challenge.
The question is whether any credit union or any bank that becomes eligible will meet our collateral requirements. And over the past few years, many banks have been moving away from the public sector because of that requirement in general. Like as I say, at the state level, it's 100%. Syracuse is very protective of its investments, and we require 102%. So again, I don't think the legislation.
And when you were saying banks are stepping away from it because are they having trouble meeting the burden?
Well, the banks and it's my understanding there's many federal regulations that are placed on commercial banks that are not placed on credit unions. Now, how this legislation relates to that, I don't know. But part of that is as it relates to the public sector. There's a variety of requirements that banks are required to comply with. And the biggest one that I'm aware of is the collaterals of deposits. And in finance, we track that on a monthly basis. So any public, even the Urban Renewal Agency, we're required to maintain collateral on that. And they don't charge us for that. That's part of, if they take our business, that's their requirement. So I just mentioned that because if this does pass and there's a movement, for example, to go to a local credit union, it's not simply putting $1,000 or X number of dollars in the credit union. It's a question, can they comply with general municipal law and the City of Syracuse investment law? So glad to talk further if you have further questions on it.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Carney.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 50 through 67. Somebody from Parks, there we go.
Good afternoon, Julie Lefebvre, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. Item number 50 is for our annual agreement with Onondaga Earth Corps. This covers approximately 5 to 7 youth who will prune about 600 trees and complete 10 stewardship projects. Item 51 through 62 are annual agreements that we enter into for various programming they're longstanding programs.
And I'm gonna put this out here to you as well. I talked to Corey. I would like to see with the programming, a little more diversity in folks that's being brought on to do the programs.
Okay. Summer specific or just year-round specific? Anything specific?
Year-round specific.
Okay. Any other questions about those items?
I don't have a question on the items. How did we make out with the bandwagon?
It worked.
And I want to thank you from the Vietnam Veterans Association. They were very happy with what occurred, and I know that you went to great lengths to make sure that, in fact, the bandwagon was up and functional for their watchtower. So
I'll pass those comments along. Thank you. Item number 63 and 64 are to amend recent ordinances. Number 63, the accounts were just listed incorrectly, so this is just updating the account numbers.
So you mean 53?
Well,
I'm sorry, 63. Oh, that's what I said when I said items.
all the rest of them are.
okay.
Items 51 through 62 are all for annual agreements.
Okay. I'm lost. Okay.
So 63 was just amending the account numbers. 64 is amending the dollar amount, the dates, and also just the actual description of what can be picked up through those services.
We added like an additional $2,000. Is that simply because we think we're going to have more, or they raised the rate of?
The previous ordinance went until March, so this one's going until June.
Okay.
And item number 65 is allocate funds for court improvements from our cash capital account. Court improvements being basketball courts, tennis courts, pickleball courts, those types of projects.
Parks.
Yes. Item 66 is for a potential playground at Westmoreland Park. And item 67 is for a potential playground at Grace Messina Park, a replacement.
Where's
You read it, Grace and Messina.
Grace Messina, what is it?
Where is it?
It's at the corner of Grace and Messina. West side. It's not far.
To the church.
Yeah, if you know where Onondaga Geddes Play Lot is, it's not. I can show you later. I'm not good with the map.
Is it, did I remember you correctly that the Onondaga play lot is going to be removed?
That's what we would like. That we would like to kind of do a in and out with those two. Yes. Any other questions?
Nope, those are my items. I'm going to call them ready.
Thank you. Councilor Lovejoy Grinnell.
Is there someone from, maybe Suzanne from the school district? I don't think there'll be a lot of questions, but just to explain what this item is.
Thank you. Suzanne Slack from the school district. Item 68 is a award of an RFP for the external audit services. We put an RFP out in the spring, had 4 respondents, and the best value was chosen with the Bonadio Group. They have been our auditor in the past, so this would be doing a 4-year renewal. It is actually a savings of $18,000 from our current pricing as a result of changes in the system and making the process more efficient for the auditors.
What's the total? I don't see anything on there.
It's $147,500, and it includes 2 complete audits, one for the school district and then one also for the Joint Schools Construction Board.
And the amounts are in our
They're
appendices.
in the back because there were too many to list, so we refer to them.
Any other questions on this item? All right, it's ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 69 through 87.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Adria Finch. I'm the Director of Innovation. Item 69, we've actually been in front of you a couple different times. This is one of our Startup in Residence projects. This one is for the crowdfunding platform that would help people with emergency housing related expenses. So we would like to pilot the application that we've been working with the startup company for 1 year to see if there is a benefit to the community with it.
Do you guys have a goal and number that you're trying to reach within that 1 year? Like how much money you want to collect?
Ideally, we'd like to raise $30,000 in the first year.
Okay.
And I'm not going to ask a lot of questions because we're going on, but they would be identified through Catholic Charities?
So what we are hoping to do is partner with Catholic Charities to help with the administration of this. So right now, people are already going to Catholic Charities to seek emergency housing funds. Some of those people are turned away just because there are certain standards or guidelines associated with that emergency housing funds. So this would be an additional backstop. So if people were not eligible for some of those funds that that already exist, they'd be able to access these funds.
Okay, because you're aware that all people don't go through Catholic Charities that may run into some problems that they may need to utilize these funds.
Yep, we've been engaging, I think, most of the stakeholders in the housing community as well as the county. And so right now, we're hoping that those individuals would get funneled towards Catholic Charities.
Are you going to do a campaign so the public can know that this is happening?
Yes, so we anticipate that this, I think it says that we would launch this in September. That's because we need a decent marketing campaign to get this out.
Can you tell me what the genesis of the cost is? Why does it cost $6,000?
It's $500 a month, and we want to pilot it for a year.
The application, the app requires a subscription.
Yes.
And would this actually help Catholic Charities in doing what they're already doing? I'm familiar with that program as an attorney for tenants, so I know that people do go there now. Mm-hmm. Does it help them at all, or is this really creating its own separate infrastructure through the city for this pilot program?
So I don't think it's going to help Catholic Charities. They would be helping us to administer the program, so it would be they wouldn't be changing anything they would be doing. It's just, again, that extra backstop of funding for them to give to people in need.
So it doesn't necessarily help them, but it helps them reach more people to actually.
Yes, it helps them reach more people.
Services.
And my understanding is that they run out of funding in the first couple days of every month. That's why it's not necessarily people don't qualify, right? It's that, yeah, you would qualify, but you're too late this month. We'll release new funds next month.
So it's an additional pool to help with that type of challenge. There are people, from what I've heard, that also don't qualify, so it could help that as well. But Catholic Charities now, from what I understand, when they're doing their work and their advocacy for the emergency funding, they do things like check to make sure that there are no code violations and other things. So that money to help with the administration for Catholic Charities, Samantha came before you a month-ish ago and requested a grant application for that funding. So this would be to administer and run the application for a year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 70. Yep.
Yeah, 70.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Stephanie Pasquale, Commissioner for Neighborhood and Business Development. Item number 70 is requesting that the City of Syracuse apply to Empire State Development for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, and this would provide up to $10 million to provide streetscape improvements and physical infrastructure improvements according to the map that was provided in your packet.
And the map is in there. It's kind of dark. But if you can just explain.
Sure.
They don't have the map, so if you can just explain the perimeters.
So it would be Jefferson Street to the north, Clinton to the west, Warren to the east, and down to Adams to the south.
Sounds great. Let's get some money, Commissioner.
Excuse me?
Sounds great.
Yeah, this is I believe our third submission that we're hoping to be successful this time.
All right. You got a question?
So what is, sorry, I don't know how much is in the book. I didn't get a chance to look at this one. I didn't see it. So what, you name the area, what's the general, what would the 10 million go towards? What's the kind of, what's
Sure, it could be facade improvements. One of the projects that we've had in there for several years is to replace the marquee at the Landmark and some of the seats inside the theater. It would be for wayfinding signage, street lighting, street sidewalk replacement. really to leverage all these other investments that are going on, but really to provide some connectivity south. That's the idea, is to improve those gateways both in and out of downtown on the southern end.
So when you say south, you're talking about like down to West Onondaga, like the Mission
West Onondaga
District?
and South Salina Street, correct.
Okay, great, thanks. I'd love to have another meet sometime to.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to share a copy of the application, which will detail more of the project descriptions.
Great, thanks.
Stephanie, didn't we put money to replace the landmark marquee a couple of years back?
To my knowledge, that there was a lot of resources that went into revitalizing or renovating the theater and the stage and the loading dock and that whole area, but that the marquee replacement has not yet occurred.
Okay. It was cited, but we did look at replacing the marquee, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and items 71 through 86.
Y'all kill a lot of trees.
Did you have any updates for us before we get started individually?
Callie Kaku with Neighborhood and Business Development. The updated list is coming around. It reflects the current tax values owed and some minimal notes where we've been able to make other contact.
Okay. So I'll go through individually, and then the district councils, you can let me know if you've had any contact with them or like any payments have been made or if you talk to them. So 71, I'm still gonna hold this one only because I wanna see, it says that he's trying to sell the property, so I just wanna get in contact with him and see exactly what's going on.
We did, we looked for listings. We weren't able to verify that, so he hasn't provided the documentation that he has it actively listed for sale.
Okay.
Right.
All right, 72?
All of mine in District 1 are ready.
Ready?
Yeah, they're all ready.
73?
Likewise, all in District 2 are ready.
So 74 is ready. 75, I'm gonna hold that. 76, I'm gonna hold. 77, hold. 78 is ready. 79, ready. I'm gonna withdraw item 80. 81 is ready. 82 is ready. 83, I'm gonna hold. 84 is ready, 85 is ready, and 86?
Ready.
Ready. Okay, and thank you. Item 87 is a resolution to recognize Mr. Breland.
I'll sign on.
This is his family and his church family. They're trying to do this as a surprise. I don't know how much of a surprise it's going to be if we're doing this now.
On YouTube.
But if anyone wants to sign on, just let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If nobody's watching on YouTube, don't tell them.
And
Right.
with that, I need to make a motion to adjourn. I mean, no, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?